Hello and welcome back to another LinkedIn Live with myself, Garth Sharif. I'm happy to be back after taking some time off, not on my own accord. I was a little bit ill, which I posted about. Had a bit of an eye issue, which was a little bit scary, I guess, at the time. Luckily, it passed, but I was in no visual shape to appear on LinkedIn Live, and I'm happy to be back and talking about what I've been talking about for the last number of LinkedIn Lives, which is generative AI and AI in general. And today's episode is AI and film. And actually, not a bad choice by myself because one, I love science fiction. I grew up a Star Trek fan with the original series. I even went to Star Trek conventions, believe it or not. And thank you for those that are watching, and I appreciate those that are here. And for all those that, the post that I put out there a few weeks ago, I had to think about. There's two reasons I posted about my health. I usually don't do those types of things. I tend to be a little bit private around those parts, but I knew I was going to have to take some time off from social media and specifically LinkedIn. And I thought that might be for just the consistency of how I was posting might be a bit jarring. So I thought maybe just give, for my one or two regular viewers out there, just give them some notice as to why I'm not posting or on LinkedIn Live. And the other part of it was something that was made me feel a little bit vulnerable because I do deliver programs in person and live, and anything that affected sort of my ability to function that way, especially as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, affected how I can run my business. So it was too uh, intense of that. Which one is just to let people know. That's why I wasn't posting as much, and maybe even not being able to hit certain milestones just because I was out of commission. The other one was just to feel as part of the business community when you get sick, and there's stress behind that, especially when you're a small business owner. There can be a lot of pressure to to think about what to do when you really can't run your business. So I felt it was really nice to get all of the comments, both privately and publicly, about that. So I really appreciate that. But to continue on with AI and film, and thanks for all those that are watching AI and film. As I mentioned before, I grew up a Star Trek fan. I went to conventions. I met Scotty, James Doohan, and Sulu, George Sakai, and part of that experience being a science fiction fan, initiated by Star Trek, was really getting into the world of artificial intelligence. Now, the original series in Star Trek had just a ton of artificial intelligence episodes, and it was always interesting to watch because generally Captain Kirk would talk down the sentient AI by making it think about itself. It's almost sort of making it understand its own existential existence, and the AI would implode. And in fact, that was the first movie for the original cast, Star Trek. The motion picture was about V'ger, this artificial intelligence entity that was threatening Earth. And there's actually quite a number of films around the 70s and 80s that were looking at artificial intelligence, Alien, and then we had Blade Runner. And there's actually quite a number of them. And generally, to me, the seminal film, the one that really made us think about it, is 2001, Stanley Kubrick's adaptation of Arthur C. Clarke's novel. And a lot of us, in terms of those that like science fiction, that's how we sort of understood artificial intelligence, something that was both amazing, ascension, what we refer to as strong AI, really could create its own value system and think like a person. But quickly in the Hollywood realm of film, it was became an antagonist, and it became something that took over something like Skynet and Terminator. And it's to me, it's interesting to look back at some of these films, and I have a listing from Wikipedia, and understand, even if you're not a science fiction fan, what the zeitgeist was. What was it trying to capture as a cultural moment? What is it doing now, as we have a new film coming out called The Creator by Gareth Edwards? I'm a big fan of his work. He directed Godzilla and Star Wars Rogue One, but he's just a great visual director. And we also have television shows. And what is that saying about this moment in time where we are actually immersed in artificial intelligence and how to use artificial intelligence? And part of this was to say, what does film have to say? Where's its progression been from the 60s and 70s, from 2001 to Terminator to Blade Runner to The Matrix and onwards to Megan, to what it really says about what maybe Hollywood sees about AI, and Hollywood does have a voice in this because the writer strike, which just ended, uh, was about artificial intelligence. George R. R. Martin and John Grisham and other authors are in a lawsuit. A bunch of other authors with ChatGPT and really OpenAI for how ChatGPT got trained in terms of where did it learn to provide these amazing, interesting, sometimes hallucinated answers when you ask ChatGPT a question. Was it infringing on the intellectual property? So there's an investment because a lot of what is part of the food for generative AI is the work of screenwriters and playwrights and authors. So there's that duality to this as well. But just to see where we're going, where we've been with science fiction, where we're going, what it says about what might be relevant to today and how we see generative AI, and what might it not say about our experience. So that was the idea. So here, let me share my screen here. And thank you for all those that are watching. I'm excited to be back on LinkedIn Live. It's been a little bit of time. So this is a list of artificial intelligence films from Wikipedia. I haven't seen all of these films, but I've seen a lot of them. Here we have 1968, 2001, A Space Odyssey. And when we think about that film with HAL 9000, heuristic algorithmic language, or something around that is the acronym for HAL. That was a sentient robot looking to assist a crew as it moved towards this monolith near Jupiter that turns very, very bad. And you might actually see that um, as a theme. Silent Running with Bruce Stern, a fantastic film. Really, really emotional gut punch. And actually, that has a bunch of societal um, themes that I think ring true. And that's the AI in that, which is probably someone walking in a robot suit. If I think about it as a kid when I watched it, I thought, wow, this is awesome. Less malevolent in terms of the AI presence. Westworld. I'm not going to go through all these, but Westworld was this is one of these films that began with complications, and a lot of this deals with strong AI that can think for itself, but not in the way of unsupervised deep learning or machine learning. Really has sentience, and that's what we refer to as strong AI. So most science fiction films deal with AI gaining sentience and maybe doing something wrong. And in Westworld, this was the original Westworld, not the television show. This was about these robots maybe potentially doing harm to the tourists that were coming into this sort of fictionalized Western world. But there's also a little bit about how they were treated as entities, and that's what the creator is about as well. So let me just continue. I won't go through Star Wars R2D2, but I don't think that was as much about AI. 1979, the Star Trek the Motion Picture about V'ger and artificial intelligence. That one again also created a duality for how artificial intelligence is if they gain sentience. Something that's complicated might be threatening, but also might have a reason for being in existence. I'm just looking at some of these. I've watched a lot of these films. I can't believe Airplane 2 is on here. I have to think about how I think they were on the moon with Airplane 2, and there's William Shatner's in that film. Superman 3, that's true. War Games, a classic. Short Circuit, RoboCop. I mean, there's a lot of classic films that deal with artificial intelligence. Um, Ghost in the Shell, the anime film, Star Trek First Contact. But let's move into the 90s. And I think if we go from the 70s, 80s to the 90s, Terminator 2, again, sentient, Skynet. The theme is artificial intelligence gone wrong. And if we keep going, we have a classic in 1998, The Iron Giant, artificial intelligence that we feel is a threat, but is ultimately trying to protect us. So there's a lot of themes you can build around artificial intelligence. That's why it makes a great um, place for screenwriters. The Matrix, another one about a world created by artificial intelligence. I don't want to give spoilers through this. I, Robot, which is an adaptation of an Isaac Asimov novel. Let's move forward because you'll see there's a lot of films that you might have watched. But in the last few years, as we've moved into a place where generative AI is part of our conversation, the big one this year was Megan. this doll robot, and it felt a little bit more close, even though this is again strong AI. That we are seeing more artificial intelligence toys, toys that can do more, and to take a horror spin onto that made sense. And the last two I really want to bring up, and I haven't seen Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning because I haven't been to the theater, but I really want to watch it. Um, that one in particular, from what I understand, is really trying to get into what is artificial intelligence doing in the background. What is it? The sense that stuff is happening in the background, and we don't always know. And again, a lot of these are generally about a threat of AI. And this kind of taps into a lot of our feelings when we think about artificial intelligence right now. Generative AI, what is it giving us, but also what is it taking away? Both an excitement and scariness, and the film adaptations or uh, the films that we see around artificial intelligence might take us to a place where it gets a little scary. Another one that's really, I think, a good one, where is would be Steven Soderbergh's. I believe it's called Me. With I'm trying to find where it is here. Where is it? There's AI. It is the I'm trying to remember with Joaquin Phoenix playing an individual who really develops a relationship with the Siri voice, like voice in his phone. Trying to remember where that got released, and I don't see it here, but it was released at some point. And then again, that was a little bit more sort of about the relationships we might have with artificial intelligence. But Dead Reckoning is interesting in the fact that again, artificial intelligence is a theme, and then the creator, and this is why I was inspired to do this today. The creator, which is coming out with on Friday, which I saw the trailer for. I thought this was a more interesting place where artificial intelligence and humans are working together, and there's a sense of artificial intelligence really is something that is a threat, but there's also a part of humanity that wants to protect them, and sees them as something that they can integrate with. It's almost like two sides of a war. But artificial intelligence is not by themselves; they're also banding with other humans. Right. So just a walkthrough of artificial intelligence from the 70s, 80s up until now. And I think what we can say about the artificial intelligence in film is there's more, I think we'll see more nuance, but a lot of it is on strong AI. Like, there's very little, if any, films, unless it's in the background around things that we have with generative AI and deep learning and machine learning, where it's not sentience that we're really looking at, artificial intelligence with a conscience. But we can still look at what the themes are of those films. Some of his explorations and relationships, but the overarching theme is artificial intelligence eventually grows to a level of consciousness and knowledge that it becomes a threat. And again, to me, that's a parable that there's some feelings around generative AI and other AI developments that move so quickly that it feels more of the SWOT analysis with the threat. Where artificial intelligence in film, and again, maybe it doesn't make for a good film because it's a little bit dry and not as exciting, I think doesn't necessarily pick up is some of the opportunities. We see it a little bit when artificial intelligence is paired as a partner in something like I'm thinking Han Solo, or there's even in iRobot, but not in sort of the way in which artificial intelligence might just make menial tasks better. They're always in the background, but not in the foreground as to what that relationship means to the main characters. And we're now the main characters where artificial intelligence can help us in some tasks that might have been very manual, or allow us to leverage some tasks. Right now, for example, I've been exploring, and I'll put this on the screen, a generative AI app called Gamma. And Gamma has been really interesting because what it can do, it can create presentations, and with uh, some guidance, not all that much. And for example, I just asked it to produce a slide deck on artificial intelligence, and this is what it produced. I didn't. All I asked was produce a slide deck to introduce the differences in artificial intelligence and introduce generative AI. And this is using instructional designer rules. It looks really great. I mean, I wouldn't use this right out. I mean, there's some things that I would do, and I always fact check everything that comes from generative AI, especially if I'm going to present it to an audience, because we've talked about this before, the alignment problem in AI hallucinations and the LexisNexis case. We don't want to just take AI outputs and definitely present them in high leverage situations to clients or to a public without vetting these and maybe making sure there's copyright and IP um, releases that you have there. But that's really interesting. So artificial intelligence in film, I think will always go to an extreme of that relationship, and that is interesting to watch right now in 2023 because we're not dealing with strong AI, but we are interacting with generative AI and AI products more than ever. So there's some sense that the science fiction that we see out there, in some ways, can trail back to what we might be experiencing, especially for those that have some concern about where this is all going. But what it doesn't capture is potentially the flip side to it, the strengths of just weak AI, of machine learning and deep learning, and what that might mean for certain amounts of work for us. So I still think you should go to the movies. The creator looks great. Dead Reckoning looked like a great film, but it's interesting what those films are trying to capture, and I still think it's more of a threat, even though the creator might be a little bit different. I think the creator, in looking at Strong Eyes, looking at AI, is potentially something that might both be helpful, but those that see it as harmful might divide with those that see it as helpful, which is I think is a nice parable for right now. So yeah, I thought it was interesting, especially for me as a science fiction fan. And I'm trying to think of my top ones. Went through the Wikipedia. I mean, grew up with Short Circuit. War Games was just on television a couple weeks ago. So when I was not feeling well, I watched War Games as much as I could. I was struggling to see the screen, but that was really an interesting movie to watch. It's really interesting to watch some of these AI films from the but even from the early 2000s, but going backwards, and to watch them with our current understanding of what's happening with artificial intelligence, and have our own takeaways from them. They're still just an amazing fertile ground for creativity and screenwriters. But as we talked about, one of the things that maybe AI didn't necessarily capture is the subtle ways in which AI can be problematic. It's just generally goes all the way to takes over the world, destroys the world, creates division. But with the lawsuit and I'll show you the screen here, from George R. R. Martin, the creator of and author of Game of Thrones, and John Grisham and others, that are looking to say what were the feeders into ChatGPT. They're taking a lawsuit approach to say we didn't give you permission for AI to be trained, generative AI to be trained this way, and these are the writers who are writing our science fiction films. So very interesting. I wonder if there has been a film about AI writing and sort of taking sort of our creativity. I mean, I think there's some parables to that in some films, but I'm just trying to think of one in particular. If you have one, let me know via the comments. One that sort of maybe anticipates how artists, writers, authors, and those that are creators are feeling about the way their content might be used. I'm sure we will see a film about that later on. All right. This is me coming back. I'm going to try and make this again regular as much as I can every few weeks to have a LinkedIn Live. But for those that were here to watch, thank you for watching today. And again, thank you. Many thanks for those that sent me well wishes. I am almost 100% back to my health, and I'm glad to be back and to be doing LinkedIn Live. So we will call it an end, and hopefully we'll see you in the next couple weeks for the next LinkedIn Live. Thank you, everybody, for watching.